it was a massive shock when we were contacted by residents to try and explain what was happening to them in Rosebarn Park. It's always been quite a well-known estate within the city, because it had been, it's a beautiful grounds, lovely flats, huge mature trees, actually a really attractive place to live, and lots of people, as you so rightly pointed out, had lived there for such a long time. So we were really surprised, and the initial reports that came out from residents, kind of anecdotally at that stage, were really shocking, that in fact it was potentially going to be turned into student accommodation, so that the city would be faced with losing a huge number, more than 60 private rented properties all at the same time. So yeah, very shocking, very surprising. Sadly, it's an all too common story, really, though, because the government have been promising reform. There's a Renters Reform Act has been in their last two manifestos, so since prior to 2017, where they said they were going to end no fault Section 21 evictions from private rented properties. It is called no fault because that's exactly what it is. Somebody could pay their rent on time every month for years and years and years, never have any complaints about their behaviour or anything, and the landlord can just decide, oh, I want to put the rent up, or I want to, I'm just going to give notice now, and whatever. So no fault to the tenant whatsoever. They've just been merrily building their life, as we all try and do, and it all just gets tossed up in the air. So the government really needs to act on this, so that no other residents anywhere in the country have to go through the shocking, terrible times that residents at Rosebarn Park went through when they were initially told you've got weeks to leave your home that you've spent many years building up all your connections within the community. So there does need to be action on this, so that it doesn't happen again, really. It's absolute tragedy, really, for so many people up there, particularly when we bear in mind the challenges that there are in the housing market in Exeter, well, nationally, but here in Exeter as well. There's very specific issues. Again, I would urge the government to have a look at some of the things that they've been doing. Possibly there's unintended consequences. A decade ago, the Lib Dem Conservative coalition removed the cap on student numbers, which possibly seemed like a good idea to them, and it's allowed many thriving universities to expand. A possibly unintended consequence of that means that here in Exeter, where we've got an absolutely amazing world-class university, it's more than doubled in size in a decade, and infrastructure just hasn't been able to keep pace with that. The properties haven't been built to house the additional 20,000 students that there are in the city now, compared to before the cap was removed by the Lib Dem Conservative coalition. And that's had a huge additional pressure on the housing market here, driving up rents for local people and making it harder for students who want to build their life here, having studied at the university, to stay in the city. There's some things that the council can do, but a lot of this is up a tier and in Westminster, where they need to be really scrutinising the decisions they're making and actually following through on some of the promises that they've spent years making. Now is the time for action on this.
Across Devon, across the country, councils are making local plans, trying to get local people's inputs into how communities develop, and then this comes along, changes an entire community, and the council just seems powerless against it.
Yeah, so I think it is a massively challenging thing for councils to do, to try and respond to this sort of change of use, because that's what has happened here in Rosebarn Park. Having neighbourhood plans, having up-to-date local plans is really important, because that allows the council to use what limited powers it has got as a planning authority to try and have an impact on this. Here in Exeter, we're currently consulting on our new local plan. That consultation runs until December the 19th, so please feed into that if you're listening to this and you haven't already done so. It's a great opportunity for you to have your say on where potential developments may be in the future in the city, and what type of development we may be looking at in the city. There's lots and lots of residents that have already been attending the consultation roadshows that we've been putting on, so over 1,000 people have turned up to those, which is absolutely fantastic. But the more people feed into these processes, that the stronger the documents will be, because they'll truly represent what everybody in a council's area wants to see in terms of development. And only through having a strong local plan, an up-to-date local plan, can councils then use the planning legislations to try and limit the impacts of these kind of huge changes of use that we've seen go on at Rosebarn Park? Yeah, I think I'd just like to probably make one final point, really, just about the. So I'll try and go into it. So an additional pressure that we're seeing now in the housing market is mortgage costs are going up. 44 days of Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng inside, residents are now facing an increase in £10 per day to their monthly mortgage costs. So on average, £449 across the southwest, mortgage payments have gone up. And that's entirely due to the economic policies that they tried to pursue. They completely crashed the economy, and not only does that affect mortgage holders, but that has a knock-on effect into the private rented sector, because most of those people who are renting are paying somebody else. They're paying their landlord's mortgage, so those costs are passed on directly. So that's just making what was an already challenging situation even worse.